Alrighty, good morning, everybody. It is Tuesday, September 12th, 2023. We're going to go ahead and get started here. Yesterday was quite a mess. As the contract starts to roll over into December here, it's probably going to be like this all week. I mean, I can't predict exactly what's going to be happening here, but typically when we get into the week of contract rollover, it can get a little messy. So what did we see yesterday? Let's take a look. I believe we talked about, and I'm going to pull up the higher time frames. I believe we talked about expecting the continuation for the bulls, right? I think we looked at the daily and we talked about seeing this nice bullish divergence on the daily from the low of last week. And that's why going into Friday of last week and into yesterday, we expected that there could potentially be continued follow through by the bulls here, right? So technically, if you look, Friday of last week was a bullish day, and Monday, yesterday, of this week was bullish as well, right? Might have been messy, but technically we did continue to push to new highs compared to that high we made off the signal bar, right? On the 4-hour, we had confirmation of that bullish signal from last week's low, and we also had, one second here, we also had the confluence with that hourly signal as well. We were also bouncing, just to kind of add to the argument for that bullish rotation. We were also bouncing, in fact, to the tick off our scaffolding level here at 44.34 quarter, which was on the chart for a couple months now, I believe. So everything lined up for an expectation of a continued bullish push going into yesterday. So let's take a look and see what happened here. And like I said, as the market starts to roll over into the new contract, it can get pretty choppy and pretty messy. And that's what we saw here yesterday. So I actually bought right here. I don't know if you guys tried this as well, trying to get long off VWAP, expecting this nice healthy pullback right into 50% of last week, right into this overnight resistance area. And unfortunately, the market ripped right through it, and I got a stop out. All right, so I'm guessing some of you might have tried our textbook VWAP setup, and it didn't work, right? That's trading. You have to get used to things not working sometimes. You got to mitigate your risk, and so you can survive and continue to trade. So that's what happened. We went right through VWAP. We did come right to the holy orange power level and try to hold, which was basically, if you look, and let's zoom in just a little bit, we had the high of the day before, the holy orange power level, and the scaffolding level here, and we highlighted this little pocket and said this would be an expected area of support if they got through VWAP, right? That would be the caveat to that. And sure enough, they did. They held it, they bounced, but rejection off the back end of VWAP, and then they held it a second time here. They did peek through by 1 point through that pocket, and then come back up, and then held the VWAP nearly to the tick, and then just kind of went super choppy here, right? So it was a bit of a mess. If you were trying to make money in that first hour, hour and a half of the open, unless you shorted the back end of VWAP on that first test, or maybe on the third or fourth test of VWAP, it just didn't work out, right? We popped through it on that second test, and then by the fourth test, went ahead and popped through again. And then we got a push to try to push to a new high for the day. Unfortunately, notice where the market broke back down. Not only was it the major retracement that we were watching up here at 44.91, in fact, great opportunity there off the back end of it for quite a while. It peaked through by, I think, just exactly 2 points there. And then finally, at the end of the day, held it and pulled back. There was a nice play off the 200 there. But again, outside of some of these things I'm mentioning, some of these notable holds, it was a very, very difficult day to trade. And I think someone just came in after I mentioned this at the beginning. Just beware with being this contract rollover week, it is expected to be choppy like this, okay? So nothing too sexy going on yesterday. And then I failed to mention here, notice what happened. The bulls tried to hold the market up right around the hopeful and the scaffolding, brought it back up, had trouble at the retracement nearly to the tick in many instances, and then came up and basically tested the high of the overnight session there, or the high of the New York session, or the New York Open, right? So the market popped out of the open. In fact, it also looked like maybe we could get along right off the back end, or the top end of the retracement there for the continuation. But then again, like they said, they threw a curveball at us. And I think I even mentioned that in our pre-market yesterday, that, you know, the bears could kind of jump in, even though we had all indications for a continuation higher. You never know if the bears are going to come in and kind of surprise us, right? I think that was the word I used. We may be surprised by the bears. And sure enough, a couple seconds after the open, a couple minutes after, we got this huge pullback. So that basically wraps up the review for yesterday. Again, pretty difficult market to trade. Coming into the overnight session and into the pre-market here, we did get a nice hold off the back end of the close of the day before with divergence there for the continuation lower. Notice that we came back into the scaffolding level, this pocket that we highlighted as an expected first support area, and the 50% of the day before here, and we held, right? And then held the back end of VWAP. So in the overnight session, you did have some of these plays that you could have tried, but this was basically super early. This must have been about 6:30 on the East Coast, and 3:30 in the morning if you were on the West Coast there. So probably weren't awake to try to catch these, but there were a couple nice textbook trades off of VWAP there. And notice we're still trying to hold right around the 50% of yesterday's range. So that brings us into this morning. There was a nice opportunity here right off the holy orange power level in the pre-market here just a couple of minutes ago. And that's about it. So what I want to do, and I'll mention here as well, today will be the last time we're on the September contract. So I do kind of get attached to my market scaffolding levels because they do work so well. Again, we held the major low last week was our scaffolding level. If you zoom out and look at the bigger picture, the scaffolding for this contract has been working out really nicely. Very sexy, holds all over the place from our scaffolding levels. The major high from a week or two ago for the rotation back down, the major low from last week for the rotation back up. Just things like that all over the place here. The major low from a couple last month right down off the scaffolding there. And then the largest rotation we got was just, I think, a point or two in front of our scaffolding down here. So I get attached to how well they work and get a little bit, what's the word for it? A little bit uneasy about the next contract, right? We're going to go into December. I'm going to have to redraw all this on here. And it's not just a one-to-one match. Like if we are, say the new contract is 20 points away from where the old contract is, it's not like we just move these 20 points because we have to go back and make sure that this works historically as well. So it will take a couple days to get new scaffolding levels up on the new contract. It might even take a week or two. I like to wait for the official rollover to happen, which will be at the end of the week here, and then give it about a week for the market to start to trade on that new contract before I put anything official on the chart. So it could be a good week or two here where we don't necessarily have some of our most cherished areas of support and resistance, the market scaffolding. And that's just the nature of the beast. So we're not going to roll over today, but tomorrow, when we come in for our pre-market tomorrow, we will be on the December contract. If you look at, and let me pull up the total daily volume for the two contracts here. We've got the December contract and the September contract. You can obviously see the daily volume is now shifted over onto the December contract. In fact, maybe even yesterday, you could have argued that, hey, we're already surpassing the volume on the September contract, right? So it's basically time to roll over. Maybe even arguably yesterday would have been the day, but we're going to hold off, and tomorrow will be the day, okay? And what I did also is I looked at my 512, which is a volume chart, right? So it's going to change and act differently based on total volume. I took a picture of what the contract looks like on the December. Let me see if I can pull that up. Give me 1 second here. Pretty sure I have it up somewhere on one of these screens. Let's see. Open the editor. So here's a picture of the new contract, the December contract, and this is the 512 tick chart. And you can see this is all the price action up here. Now the lines on here are from our old contract. It just so happened to be that we held on some of the levels from the older contract nearly to the tick. That's really just kind of coincidence there, because these levels were based on the previous contract, and we've shifted now pretty significantly. Probably we're about 50 points off. The new contract is 50 points higher, I believe, than the current contract we're on, right? So if you look at yesterday on the new contract and see where it held, there's that VWAP test, there's the hold right around the holy orange power level, and you look at what happened here on the contract we're currently on, it's all the same price action. So the actual, even though we're slightly lower volume on the old contract, all the price action on our tick charts was nearly identical. You can see here's the swings, here's the holds off VWAP, right? And then the breakout through VWAP to come up to test the high of the morning session there. All happened here on the December contract as well, right? So there's really no difference. But I believe as we get later into the week, it will slowly start to change, right? So that was a pretty long little review here before we got into the pre-market for this morning. But let's go ahead and jump into it here. We're going to go up to the higher time frames, see what the markets are saying up, or what the charts are saying for this morning. So, and actually, I failed to mention, I thought this would be a very cool thing to mention here before we jump into our pre-market this morning, and that is to look at what happened here with our major fib legs. So we talked about this yesterday. On Friday of last week, the high of the day was to the tick, literally to the tick, the first 38% retracement that we had on our charts, right? So if we look from the major rotation back down, this is where we had the daily, the 4-hour, the hourly giving bearish signals, and the market started to fail all the way down to the test of our scaffolding to the tick there, where we then got the counter signal on the daily and the 4-hour and the hourly for a bullish bounce. That whole leg down, there's the 38. We tested it on, I believe that's Friday of last week, to the tick, and that was the high of the day. Now coming into, this is, I believe, Monday of this week, September 11th, we came in and tested into 50% of that leg. And yes, it wasn't to the tick beautiful. They popped through by 2 points. So essentially, a hold from the 38 for a major rotation back down, or a significant daily rotation. And then yesterday, we came up and tested into 50% of that leg, and we got another significant rotation back down going into our overnight session here coming into this morning. Just a little bit higher now. We've got the 61.8 up here, fairly close to that swing I mentioned. So that's that pocket that's still left. We could be just pulling back to bounce up and test into there as well, right? So again, this is all textbook stuff. This is why we like to use these fibs. Okay, so let's talk about this morning now.